Welcome to Mainstreet Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Steve, for coming on Mainstreet Mind Podcast. This is where we invite successful tech entrepreneurs and industrially people that have made successful careers in tech. And it helps anybody new joining the industry to know what are the possible options, how did people reach their success, and what are they doing right now with their personal goals, career goals, as well as financial goals. So without any delay, let's get started. Introduce yourself. What do you do at Breeze? And how did you get started with everything?
Thank you, Amish. So I'm Steve Soto. I am the CTO at the Breezy company, and I've been doing technology. I sold my first software as a teenager in 1979. And I've been riding all the waves. The idea behind the Breezy company is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that want to look credible on the internet. They want to have some authority. They want to basically know that when people show up and look at their stuff, that they look like they've got credible information. Mm-hmm. The problem is that even though they are very good, they run out of time to actually tell people about it. So mm-hmm. They don't post as frequently as they should. They don't polish their videos as much as they should. They don't update their website as consistently as they should. And, as you grow your company, you get to a point where you've been doing a lot of right things. The company's growing. And now the company's gotten to the point where, you know what, I just don't have time to do this anymore. And you're faced with do I hire somebody to do it? Can I afford to hire someone to do it? Or do I just, work more hours? And the Breezy company is set up so that we're a subscription. You can turn us on and off. You can hire people that, quite honestly, you couldn't afford to hire as a full-time staff person. We've got very talented people with very deep experience. And since you only need a few hours each month of their time, we can offer that as a subscription that you can afford. And, we're business owners too. We know that sometimes cash flow gets into a crunch. Almost all of our customers at some point or another has turned us off. And then when cash got better, they turn us back on. So we want to treat people the way we wished we had been treated when we were building our businesses.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole idea behind the Breezy company, whether it's content creation, website development or maintenance, social media posting and engagement, and one of our latest offerings, video creation and editing. It's like having a whole marketing back office with one subscription.
That is amazing. So some of the challenges that I see in kind of hiring a marketing company is there will be some, many marketing companies might be specializing on one thing and they will just say that is the one right thing to do. And when we start doing that, everything kind of works, right? Like direct mail works, podcasts work, everything kind of works, but then there is a approach to do it. Do you also provide high level overview of selecting and what somebody should be doing?
Yeah, both at the strategy level of how to address your particular customer, but then that refinement as trends change. I can tell you, posting on social media 6 years ago is a lot different than posting today.
Yeah.
There were times even we've discovered, trends that have affected us. It used to be that Facebook ads were great. Not so much anymore. Now, if you're selling tennis shoes or perfume or cosmetics, sure, they're still good. And Instagram's still great for that stuff. But if you're selling a service, really, you've got to have transitioned your advertisement to a more B2B platform like LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, we each month do a lunch and learn with the entire company, where we present things that are in flux. Things, we present problems, and that we can do kind of a mastermind group. How do we solve this problem in, that we're not getting responses in a particular area. And then, of course, with our customers, we A/B test everything to make sure that we get, the message right and see what the response is.
Yeah, sounds great. So, like if somebody is in, as you mentioned, if majority of the businesses in US are more on the service side, majority of the product business is pretty much kind of still on manufacturing sales, right? And there is a lot more streamlined. So services is what majority, I would say, of the people are working in right now. How do you approach that? Like, do you like are there like different variations of how to sell a service?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the particular service. A service like construction is much different than a service that like coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So, we get, we spend some time with our customers. We get to know what's been working for them. We help create the personas of their ideal customers. And then we create marketing collateral and plans to direct towards their best opportunities.
Cool.
It's now when they're selling something that's hyper focused, like tennis shoes or fashion, then we work with experts in the field to identify what appeals to that particular group.
Makes sense. So how did you get interested in this, and like how did you get in? Like tech and marketing are somewhat related, but like a very different field, right? How did you come from the tech background and grow interest in marketing?
Well, having done tech all my life, it was one of these things where I made a good friend. He was a marketing guy. We kept showing up at the same clients where I was being the CTO and he was being the CMO. He had started the Breezy company, and as they grew, they realized we can't really implement marketing ideas without technology. There's no more sending your ad off to the newspaper or the magazine. I mean, there is some of that, but it's just not it's not for the core small business person to use.
Yeah.
And so when he came up with the idea and asked me, he says, well, would you like to join my company? And I said, absolutely not. I don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, would you like to be a partner? And I said, now that's something we can discuss.
Yeah.
And so, it really became rather organic that, because marketing requires so much technology these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything from just a simple lead funnel and an automatic response, all the way through AI customer service tools. Did a demo for a testosterone clinic in Georgia the other day.
Yeah.
They are only open 2.5 days a week, but they get phone calls at all hours of the day and night, every day of the week.
Yeah.
And all of those calls were basically going unanswered or into a voicemail box that they never seemed to be able to unfill. I did a demo with a technology that allows what sounds like a real human to answer real questions about their business accurately and schedule appointments for when a real human is available.
Nice.
Now, when they implement this AI on a phone, they're not going to miss anyone who wants to make an appointment, and they're going to be able to answer all their prospects' questions. They were blown away, just absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
And we then expanded the idea. They didn't have an outbound wellness check program. They were so busy servicing people, right? Coming in, doing their blood tests and getting the right prescriptions and getting those shipped out, that once you became a customer, they basically never called you until it was time for your next blood check.
Yeah.
Well, now with what we're going to do with the AI is going to make a phone call once a month going, hey, checking in. Are you taking the medications we prescribe? Is everything working for you? Do you want to talk to one of our doctors? We are available. I can set up an appointment for you. And now all those customers who basically thought, well, I'm sending my money, I get my medication, and then they forget about me, will actually feel like there's some interaction.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
feels like I was just thinking, when we talk about the internet equipment, we just want to forget about it. But wouldn't it be cool if it would send me some statistics about like what is going on in my network? How is it working? Like that just feels so much smarter, right? I'm so glad you are able to offer that in uh, I'm not sure if it's just within marketing, but it's complete customer relationship. It's not just
well, it
marketing.
is. I mean, it is. I mean, honestly, you've got to be marketing to your existing customers as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that you buy anything,
Mm-hmm.
if you buy a car and then you never hear from that dealership again, when it
Mm-hmm.
becomes time to buy a car again, you're going
Yeah.
to just start shopping around.
Mm-hmm.
But if that car dealership remembered to send you a birthday card and holiday cards, reminders for all of your oil checkups and your wheel rotations, and they basically have just stayed in your life, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to feel a little uncomfortable looking for another dealership.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and that's all marketing. I mean, we call it customer service, but
Yeah.
the idea is you've got to stay in a positive way in the minds of your customers all
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
or they will find someone else because there's just way too many opportunities to change
Yeah.
vendors or suppliers. So,
Nice. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how your journey was from like 1979 like till today. Was it a smooth sailing? Was it challenging? Did you like set up goals? How was your life? How was your
well, from a very young age, I knew I liked technology.
Mm-hmm.
I liked electronics and gadgets, and I was the kid that would take things apart. Probably that my parents didn't want me to take apart, and put them back together, hopefully successfully. And I learned about radio, amateur radio and ham radio, and then CB radios. And um, when computers first started becoming available and not taking up a whole room, I was very fortunate that a neighbor of mine got frustrated with his computer and gave it to me. He's like, I can't stand this thing, take it. And
Yeah.
so I got a computer at a very young age. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the late 70s.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And so I learned how to program all on my own. There were no classes.
Yeah. Was it
And
a 486? Like was it a Intel X86 486?
No, well, it was. I had a 8086, and then I also had a Z80
Oh
based
wow.
system, and the operating system was CPM. The
Yeah.
storage media was cassette tape.
Sweet.
It was so, but I learned, and I got into the mainframe world, and then the mainframe world actually transitioned me to the PC world two ways.
Mm-hmm.
First off, the company that I was working for was very large,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a program where you could buy a personal computer through the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I got one of the early IBM computers, the ATXT class, and then at the same time, when CD-ROM technology first started
Mm-hmm.
being a thing at the very beginning, the company I was working for, I wrote the software to convert the data from tapes to CD.
Oh wow.
And, we were a very large company with thousands of customers. And so we were making millions of CDs early before people knew what CD-ROMs were.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
what was it like? Like I know like the newer CD-ROM burners are like I call them newer, wherever they were like a small little rectangular box, right? Was it something like that, or was it?
well, in the very early days, what you did is you had to take the data from the random access format and put it in what a linear data stream.
Yeah.
And so, I created software that would take all the data, organize it, add an index, and then put it as a stream
Oh,
onto tapes that were then taken to a factory. So it wasn't even desktop at this point; it was factory level.
yeah.
And then they would take that stream and they would play it to a laser beam recorder. that
Mm-hmm.
would etch a metal plate. And then they would, yes. So just like making a CD.
Yeah.
They weren't read write at that point. Now, those little boxes that are what, 5.25 inch form factor,
Mm-hmm.
first off, the density of that data is much higher.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, the speed in which it plays back is much faster. The original playback speed of a CD-ROM was the same speed as an audio CD.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't until several years later that companies like Hitachi and Sony started making the CD players be able to play faster.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then,
I,
the internet came around after that. Um, I was very fortunate. I was an adjunct professor at NYU. I got a very early DARPA email address because they had hooked up the internet to the universities first.
yeah.
And so I was on the internet, while we were still in dial-up mode, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and kind of, did the whole internet thing as well.
Sweet, nice, and cool. So that's a very rich experience. Obviously it predates a little bit more than what I know. My first computer was a 486, so with a floppy drive. So this goes way before that. And how has it been right now? Like, what motivates you to go to work? What is like an ideal uh, customer that you like to help? And like, what does your life look like now?
Well, now, I mean, much like most of my history, technology is continually evolving.
Yeah.
So, now we're in the AI world, right?
Hmm.
So I'm learning new AI tools, how to implement them. Unlike my early days of CD-ROM, where I was helping invent the CD-ROMs,
Yeah.
now I'm learning how to implement AI. I'm not learning how to create brand new AI tools,
Yeah.
but I'm able to get those into the hands of a huge variety of industries
Mm-hmm.
because of what Breezy does and the fact that we service every type of industry possible. I mean, everything from uh, churches and nonprofits to big corporations to coaching to cannabis. We get a chance to implement technology in all those businesses, and it's just fascinating to see how AI is touching every business out there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I was just looking at one of the videos where there were like two phone calls having a conversation,
And
and
then they switched modes to talk to each other in computerese.
yeah, in
Yeah.
the generation, I was like, I'm not really sure if that. It still seems a little bit slower. I think there will be a little bit faster way of communicating with each other.
Well, it's interesting. I did have a conversation on that exact video. And I
Yeah.
believe what will happen is when two AIs understand that they're talking to each other, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing they're going to share is their API specification.
Yeah.
And then they'll just say, okay, let's hang up the phone and continue this in API.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm
Because
sure that that's the progress they'll make.
yeah, I was working at I was an account executive at one of the lending firms, and we implemented a chatbot with some AI-based automated responses to like actually reply back to people. And apparently, somebody else within my company, like I had set up my own account as a test borrower, and
Mhm.
so his AI was actually speaking with mine, but because I was the account executive and a test borrower, they were both chatbots were speaking with each other and trying to sell the same thing to each other.
That is
It was,
funny. That
yeah,
is funny.
it is
Yeah,
amazing.
I think with every industry, you're going to have these glitches. I
Yeah,
mean, look at how many times websites have gone crazy, right?
yeah,
And even in the day when we were pressing CD-ROMs, when you were physically making them in a factory, if you had a small error, you were
hmm,
making tens of thousands of copies of that small error.
hmm,
And I think AI is going to do that too. You're gonna have two AIs that start talking to each other, and one of them is going to basically say, "Would you like to buy this?" And the other one's going to say yes, and then someone's money is going to get spent
Yeah.
and we're going to have to figure out how to unravel that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a I think that happens in every phase of technology.
Yeah. It probably also happens with the human right now, right? So it's just natural that it will happen with the AI. We could be like in an office setting, if we are hiring an employee, we are indirectly giving them the authorization to do something for us. And I think with AI, it's going to be a little more intelligent than that. It's going to
Well,
be
you hope, but I also think that the opportunity to make bigger mistakes will be there.
right.
I mean, when you're a stock firm and you hire a trader, you
Hmm.
have software that limits the size of their trades without approval.
Yeah.
Well, when you're an AI and the approval software is AI, and you're doing a trade and you ask for an approval, and maybe the approval software catches the first one, but doesn't catch the 5,000th time you ask.
Yeah.
You could end up spending hundreds of millions or billions of dollars on a
Hmm.
bad trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, and just the speed at which things happen. uh, you know you send me an email, I want to write a reply. If I sit down to the keyboard and write the reply by hand, it takes me 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
If I give it to Chat GPT or Gemini, it writes it in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But what happens if I just say auto reply to everything, and all of a sudden now I'm replying back to you with something that makes no sense whatsoever, and I never even saw it?
Yeah, and the intent, like, will can we transfer our thought process and our intent into it? And if 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 it takes longer for us to explain our AI or the agent to understand our intent, is it what is easier? Like, is it easier to just reply to the email or explain the agent of what we really want? So I think it's going to be an interesting next 5 to 7 years at least
At
on the
least.
evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things you mentioned is you do make money from tech and then you invest into real estate, right? Like how is your kind of overall career? I always call it career and finance sort of sometimes go together,
Right.
and it's coming from the tech world. We love to like take big risks, right? How is that working in your investments? Like, do you generally take similar higher risk, higher return investments, or like how do you see investments?
Right. Well, I think I would consider my investment strategy a punctuated investment.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a windfall, I will take that money and invest it.
Okay.
Typically, I'll invest it in a real estate, something very stable.
Yeah.
Sometimes in bonds or things that aren't going to go away or crash or get
Mm-hmm.
sold off. Um, but I have to say I probably invest in my own ventures because I bet on me,
Yeah.
and that's done pretty good.
That's perfect. So it's like, is it mostly like smaller startups or like any specific area of focus that?
Mostly smaller startups where I'll put in my money and my sweat equity to
Mhm.
help a startup grow.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I probably would leave the whole exit part up to a different partner.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm heavily engaged that if a partner wants me as a tech
Mm-hmm.
partner, um, they also need to understand that I'm going to be talking about the exit strategy all the time.
Sure.
You have to have your business ready to either
Mm-hmm.
grow or be acquired,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't design your business to grow or be acquired, you're
Mm-hmm.
basically designing it to go away,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're
Exactly.
never going to run it forever.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have these things where you invest in opening up a hardware store and you run it as a mom and pop hardware store for all of your life and then hand it to your kids.
Yeah.
Tech companies are meant to service a large number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And either you're strategic to the growth of another company, or you're going to become very, very required by your population.
Yeah.
A good example is Facebook. They're
Mm-hmm.
very required by their population.
Yeah.
and they switch from being a acquisition target to being an acquirer.
Yeah.
But even they have to acquire.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook itself, if you took Facebook from 10 years ago and
Mm-hmm.
that's all they ever did is that same thing from 10 years ago, they'd be out of business. Just
Mm-hmm.
ask MySpace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they had to switch to buying new and interesting things.
Yeah, just like I think MySpace was one, right? There's just so many other social media companies, like social networking companies, right? Not, I don't think we can call them social media companies. I think Facebook was one of the social media companies rather than the social networking
Yeah.
companies. Yeah, and I think they're doing good. Like I think most tech companies, they constantly need to innovate, but once they grow in size, it's difficult for them to innovate. And acquisition is one of the only real option left for them.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, is there like, do you generally invest like at a seed state or like a VC state? At what stage do you like to?
At a seed and angel level,
Okay.
I probably say no way more often than I say yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But it's a matter of understanding, uh, how the market is going to be served by whatever they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I work right now with several
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs, and I'm their fractional CTO.
Oh, sweet.
Um, but it's each of them have a very well-defined community,
Mm-hmm.
and they are poised to service it. And I think that not only are they poised to service it, but they're fulfilling a pain point in their markets
Mm-hmm.
where either they're going to be a great success on their own or they'll be acquired to help someone else be a great success.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think even like from me, like with it coming from the tech background into the real estate, like I see exactly like real estate uses a little bit of tech, but it's still so far behind. It's just crazy
Well,
how much. Uh,
it does a lot in helping buyers identify houses they want.
mhm,
It does a good job of from a bulk investment point of view,
mhm,
understanding the parameters of what houses are good values to purchase and
mhm.
how much you're going to have to put in order to see a return. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of analytics that are real good technology wise in real estate, but from a consumer trying to buy a house, technology has not helped them a whole lot in the actual process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I like to see is like separating the investment with the home ownership. Like the home ownership has just so much more to it. And it shouldn't really be in it. The investments become part of it, but it should be separate, right? And
Mhm.
the aspect of investing into real estate shouldn't be mixed up with the home ownership or the pride of ownership. Like there is like two different senses,
Right.
and that
Well,
somewhat
and and
separate.
I may have a very liberal point of view on this.
Yeah.
I don't believe that big corporations should own hundreds of thousands of homes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a recipe for a disaster at a country level.
Yeah.
When you get a Blackstone
Mm-hmm.
buying hundreds of thousands of properties,
Mm-hmm.
they're making decisions based on just their profits.
Yeah.
But not whether or not it's good for the community or the country or the individuals living in those homes.
Yeah.
They're making decisions that are abstracted from that entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask anyone, do you want to live in a place where the decisions about how you're going to live are being made by computers? Most people would say no, please no.
Yeah.
And companies like Blackstone and large real estate investment companies, they are exactly that way. They are making decisions based on computers
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with the very real humans that need to live in those buildings.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of the understanding of each person's needs might be very different. It could be a very good person that might be going through a temporary issue, or it could be somebody that's really bad with financing, just temporarily fixed up their credit a little bit and trying to get into an investment which probably they should not, right? Like the whole and over time, over 30 years, 50 years is a very long time. A person changes, their situation changes. It could be temporary or it could be long term. So the behavioral pattern versus the temporary instantaneous outlook of a person, most decisions are still made based on that instantaneous situation of a person.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing that I was looking at is this the fractional ownership, right? The real estate is very, very slow. If we can use technology to maybe include like tokenize housing, tokenize the ownership of title, tokenize transfer of ownership of properties. If we can do some of that, I think there is a lot of scope for, to take away the friction from investments. Just like uh, uh, stock companies have a secondary market, but real estate doesn't really have a strong secondary market. It has a little bit, but very, very little secondary markets to kind of fractionalize or tokenize it and make it faster.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, so going back to the audience, like what would you recommend somebody starting off in tech right now? What are some of the things that they should be learning, and how do they what what like should what life how much time should they be dedicating? Like, is this still a lifelong career? Is this something that they should be looking for 5 or 10 years? Can somebody survive for the next 30 to 50 years of their career in working in tech?
That's a good question. I would say tech in if you make it generic in tech, yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise people to learn how to be coders today.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be that will be replaced.
Yeah.
But should you learn robotics? Yeah, we're barely touching robotics right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, robotics are still something interesting we see on videos, not that we see every day in our life. So learn robotics.
Yeah.
Understand the intersection of hardware and software.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of our growth in the world has been software driven,
Mm-hmm.
but there's going to be amazing advances in hardware. I mean, I don't know if you saw the quantum chip
Yeah.
announcement.
Yeah.
That's going to change how, just like right today we say, oh, listen, the phone we hold in our hand is more powerful than the computers that launched people into space.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to be the computer in your glasses is smarter than all the iPhones that ever existed.
Yeah.
And people are going to have a tremendous amount of processing power.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the intersection of health and technology, that's
Mm-hmm.
not going away.
Yeah.
As long as there are humans,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to need healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And technology has just made that better healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
faster healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully at some point, when the greed reduces, it'll make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
there's
think,
a
yeah, sorry.
no, because there's amazing technology that's available today, but it's not accessible because of financial pressures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if I understand, I think it's important to know the basics of how things work, but and then always be open to like going to the next thing that is going to come up. And about 5 to 10 years is a reasonable time frame when somebody's like working in a specific technology, right? I would say, right?
Right.
And things do change over time, but still, if somebody has learned and understood the basics of how things work in tech, they can apply it to different technologies that will be coming up.
Yes. I mean, and I am a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
When I got started, mainframes were the pinnacle of computing. And I got very involved in it. I had a whole career, many years in it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw that PCs started to become available,
Mm-hmm.
then that became important. And then networking became important. Then CD-ROMs became important. Then internet became important. And now we're at the point where mobile devices are starting to be getting that transition of being less important. and AI is becoming more important. So these transitions happen throughout your life, and you just need to be aware of them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. So yeah, just so if somebody wants to reach you, like what's the best way they can reach you? And
on LinkedIn at Steve Soto 1 is my profile. So STEVESOTO, the number 1.
Sweet, perfect. So that's reach out to Steve. And before we conclude, like any other final departing words for the audience?
Just I'm really appreciative that you're doing this. When the opportunity was presented, I went and watched some of your videos. I recommend that the viewers watch some of your older videos.
Thank you.
And I'm just really glad to have this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to have you on this show, and thanks for taking time on a busy working Tuesday in the middle of the week, and sharing your valuable insights with all of our audiences.
You're very welcome, and I can go back to paying attention to all those alerts that were trying to get my attention while we were talking.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, have a good one. Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Mainstreet Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.